Did Merlin steal Stonehenge from the Irish? According to the 12th century Welsh cleric Geoffrey of Monmouth, he absolutely did. But the famed magician of Arthurian legend didn't do it alone. As detailed in the History of the Kings of Britain, the Romano-British king and military leader Aurelius, fresh off a victory against the Anglo-Saxons, wants to build a monument to commemorate the sacrifices made by the, quote, noble patriots of Caer Caradoc, which will later become known as Salisbury. Alas, none of the masons or carpenters Aurelius consults feel up to the task, and it is suggested to the king that he seek out, quote, Merlin, the prophet of Vortigern, end quote, as there is no one in the kingdom, quote, of a brighter genius, either in predicting future events or in mechanical contrivances, end quote. Shortly thereafter, Merlin would offer the king the following blueprint/prophecy. Quote, if you are desirous to honor the burying place of these men with an everlasting monument, send for the Giant's Dance, which is in Killarross, a mountain in Ireland. For there is a structure of stones there, which none of this age could raise without a profound knowledge of the mechanical arts. They are stones of a vast magnitude and wonderful quality, and if they can be placed here, as they are there, round this spot of ground, they will stand forever. End quote. Upon hearing this grand plan, the king laughs in Merlin's face. How is it possible to remove such vast stones from so distant a country, he says, as if Britain was not furnished with stones fit for the work. End quote. I mean, it's a fair question, but Merlin knows something the king doesn't. And I quote, they are mystical stones, and of a medicinal virtue. The giants of old brought them from the farthest coast of Africa and placed them in Ireland while they inhabited that country. Their design in this was to make baths in them when they should be taken with any illness, for their method was to wash the stones and put their sick into the water, which infallibly cured them. With the like success they cured wounds also, adding only the application of some herbs. There is not a stone there which has not some healing virtue. End quote. Welp, that convinces him, so King Aurelius sends his brother, Uther Pendragon, perhaps best known as the father of Arthur, to lead 15,000 soldiers across the sea to Ireland to steal the stones. Merlin goes on the journey as well. When this host of marauding Britons arrives, the Irish king Gillamanius is waiting for them with an army of his own. A fierce battle ensues, but fortunately for Uther Pendragon, his forces prevail. They then make their way to the mountain, Killarross, and find the Giant's Dance. And while gazing at this incredible structure, Merlin instructs them, quote, now try your forces, young men, and see whether strength or art can do the most towards taking down these stones. End quote. So the soldiers set up cables and ropes and ladders, and now Merlin gets to have a laugh because try as they might, they can't get those stones to budge. The strength approach has failed. So Merlin begins his own, quote, contrivances, putting in place the, quote, engines that are necessary, and with this more artful approach, he is able to take down the stones with ease. Merlin then gives the soldiers instructions for carrying the stones back to the ships and loading them on board. And after the stones are unloaded in Britain, King Aurelius invites all of the church leaders in the area to Salisbury, where Merlin reconstructs the Giant's Dance monument, placing the stones, quote, in the same manner as they had been in the mountain Killarross. Et voila, Stonehenge. Or so the story goes. Now, this is the part of the video when I'd usually explain how Geoffrey of Monmouth's History of the Kings of Britain contains more fantasy than actual history, and how this story in particular is clearly didactic, i.e. it has a lesson to teach, much like a fable. Our pal Geoffrey even does us the courtesy of reiterating that lesson in the very last line of the story, which is, quote, the prevalence of art above strength, end quote. Then there's the fact that Merlin is a composite character based in part on the 6th century Welsh figure Myrddin Wyllt, who himself is only quasi-historical with parallels in the Scottish wild man of the woods Lailuchen and the Irish wild man of the woods Sefna Gelt. It's a whole Celtic folklore motif thing. And of course, I could also explain how radiocarbon dating has shown that construction on Stonehenge likely began around 3000 BCE, thousands of years before the arrival of the Anglo-Saxons, or the Romans, or the Brittonic/Brythonic speaking Celts, i.e. the Britons for that matter, who wouldn't show up until around 1000 BCE, which means there's no way the famed megalithic structure of Salisbury Plain could have been built during the reign of the 5th century CE Romano-British ruler Aurelius Ambrosius, aka Ambrosius Aurelianus. And my big takeaway from all of those points would be that the Stonehenge was stolen from Ireland story is obviously bogus. Only here's the thing, it might not be. To quote British archaeologist Mike Parker Pearson, "My word, it's tempting to believe it. We may well have just found what Geoffrey called the Giant's Dance." End quote. Yeah, you heard that correctly. Parker Pearson and his team may have found the original Irish Stonehenge. Or what's left of it anyways. And what's left is a ring 110 meters, 360 feet in diameter, which just so happens to be the same exact diameter of the enclosing ditch of modern Stonehenge. And yes, I'm using the term modern here very lightly. And that ring aligns with the summer solstice sunrise, again, just like modern Stonehenge. And within that ring, the team discovered 4 blue stone pillars, as well as several holes, the shapes of which can be matched to the shapes of Stonehenge's blue stone pillars. One hole in particular features an imprint that lines up so well with a distinctive cross-section of a Stonehenge stone pillar that it's, quote, like a key in a lock. And while the discovery of this ring was certainly exciting, it wasn't entirely unexpected. All the way back in 1923, the British geologist Herbert Thomas established that Stonehenge's famed spotted dolerite bluestones came from the Preseli Hills, aka the Preseli Mountains in Pembrokeshire, a county in southwestern Wales. And even then, Thomas suspected those stones had originally been part of, quote, a venerated stone circle, end quote, somewhere in that vicinity. Then in 2015, Parker Pearson and co. discovered some stones of a similar nature that had been extracted but left behind at Craig Ross Uvelin and Carn Goidog on the north side of the Preseli Mountains. Radiocarbon dating of charred hazelnut shells, the remnants of a prehistoric snack, placed the extraction of those stones at around 3300 BCE, a few centuries before the construction of Stonehenge. Then in 2017, that same team would uncover the aforementioned ring at a site known as Wine Mawn, Welsh for Peatmore, situated only 5 kilometers or 3 miles from those quarries in the Preseli Mountains. Their findings were published in the journal Antiquity in 2021. So, from Geoffrey of Monmouth's quote-unquote history to Herbert Thomas's geology to Mike Parker Pearson's archaeology, we now have actual evidence that Stonehenge began its life as a megalithic monument somewhere other than Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire, England. To quote Parker Pearson, "How else do you explain that the stones come from a series of quarries 140 miles away as the crow flies if there isn't some other kind of relationship? It just struck me that surely there has to be a stone circle." End quote. And now we know that there was one. The Giant's Dance was real. Only at this point you might be thinking to yourself, wait, that dismantled stone circle they discovered was in Wales, not Ireland. So Geoffrey of Monmouth still got it wrong. Very observant of you, dear viewer. But get this, during the period in which Geoffrey of Monmouth's story is set, the 5th century CE, much of the southwest of Wales, including what is now Pembrokeshire, was part of an Irish kingdom. The kingdom of Dyfed emerged in the year 410 CE, or thereabouts, following the departure of the Romans from the region. The kingdom was founded by the Daci, a class of Irish people from the Waterford area of Ireland who managed to gain political power in the early medieval period. According to the King's Cycle of Irish mythology, specifically the medieval narrative The Expulsion of the Daci, which dates to the 8th century CE, the Daci were heirs to the High Kingship of Ireland before being expelled from Tara, ancient Ireland's royal seat of power. that same narrative names Oched, son of Arthorp, as the first Desi settler of the Welsh land called Demystifying, which would be Latinized as Demetia before morphing into Dyfed, a name that persists to this day as one of the 8 preserved counties of Wales. They're used for ceremonial purposes. Anyway, the kings of Dyfed allegedly spring from this line, a line that includes Oched's great-grandson, Tryfan, Welsh Tryfan Varvog, and terminates in Tulador mac Regan, Welsh Tudor mac Regan. We know these Welsh names because Welsh sources, the Harleian genealogies in particular, corroborate much of what's detailed in the Irish text, with one glaring exception. Instead of tracing the aforementioned Tryfan back to Oched, Harley traces his lineage back to the Roman Emperor Constantine I. However, it's likely that both of these pedigrees were fabricated to an extent, or perhaps embellished is a better word, in an effort to give the line of Dyfed kings an air of royal legitimacy. Because the historical reality is that before coming to Wales, the Desi in Ireland were the descendants of unlanded vassals, i.e. they had no royal heritage at all and were ruled over by other clans. Now, to me, that makes the story of their ascent all the more compelling, but obviously the scribes writing about them in the Middle Ages didn't feel the same way. But the mythologization, if you will, of the Desi doesn't rule out the historicity of Irish settlers in Wales. For example, Ogham inscriptions, composed in an early form of the Irish language, have been uncovered in what is now Pembrokeshire, and both the 9th century Historia Britonum, the History of the Britons, and the 10th century Sanus Cormac, Cormac's Glossary, describe the escapades of a different group of Irish seafarers in Wales, the Liahan clan. Granted, the Liahan settled in North Wales, although some historians argue the Desi may have originated as a southern offshoot of this larger colony, a colony that lasted until the mid-5th century. And speaking of 5th century Irish invaders in Wales, I'd be remiss not to mention that near the beginning of the 5th century, a one Mr. Mywyn Succat was abducted by Irish raiders from a Roman settlement in Wales, according to one reckoning of that settlement's location anyway. He was then sold into slavery in Ireland, but fortunately was able to escape and thereafter turned his attention toward religious pursuits. You probably know this Mywyn Succat guy better by his other adopted name, Patrick. Yes, as in Saint Patrick. Even as recently as a few weeks ago, researchers have uncovered more evidence of tumultuous Celtic activity in Wales, re the discovery of a, quote, humongous Roman fort in none other than Pembrokeshire. To quote journalist Dalia Alberge, writing for The Guardian, the fort is thought to date from the 1st to the 3rd centuries, when the Celtic Demystifying tribe inhabited the southwest area of modern Wales. This fort suggested this part of Wales was considerably more militarized than previously thought. End quote. Okay, admittedly, this isn't super relevant because what they're saying here is that the local Brittonic/Brythonic Celts, once believed to be pro-Roman, were actually more hostile to the Romans than previously thought, but still, it's possible the raiding Gaelic/Goidelic Celts from Ireland were also giving the Romans in this area strife. After all, it's an area that would eventually come under Irish control. Until the year 920, that is, when the kingdom of Dyfed was absorbed into the Principality of De Hybarth amid a period of destabilization brought about by another group of invaders, the Vikings. Did I just go on the longest tangent ever? Yes, that's what I do here. But the takeaway is this. Geoffrey of Monmouth seems to have had knowledge not only of Stonehenge being a reconstruction of an earlier monument, but also of that monument originally being situated on Irish land, even if that Irish land wasn't on the island of Ireland. The mountain Killarross, home of the Giant's Dance, isn't a mythological reference to the hill of Ishnach in Ireland's County Westmeath, as some have argued. It's a historical-ish reference to the Preseli Mountains in Pembrokeshire. That's not to say the Irish in Pembrokeshire built that original monument, or that Aurelius Ambrosius ordered its stealing. Both the construction and relocation of the monument happened thousands of years before, back in the New Stone Age. But clearly the story of its relocation persisted in the local folk memory, or what have you, and Geoffrey of Monmouth was able to tap into it. Either that, or the Irish connection to that area in Wales is just a huge coincidence. For the sake sake of this video, let's assume it wasn't a coincidence, and let's close out by exploring one last little detail that could potentially throw a monkey wrench in Geoffrey's story. If Merlin and Uther Pendragon and crew only had to travel to Wales and not Ireland itself to capture the Giant's Dance, why did they take boats? And the answer to that question is, look at a map. The journey back to Salisbury from Pembrokeshire would have been best facilitated, at least in its first legs, by seafaring. And wouldn't you know it, some researchers theorize that that is exactly how the Neolithic movers of the monument transported all of those blue stone pillars. By boat. If you enjoyed this video, please like and comment and basically just tap all of the little buttons, and by the end of it make sure you are subscribed to the Irish Myths channel. That really helps. And if you want to learn more about megalithic monuments from Irish and Celtic mythology, there's a video for that. It covers the differences between dolmens, cairns, and tumuli, and the roles they played in Celtic ritual life. I've also got a video on the Green Knight's Irish origins, which may be of interest to the Arthurian legend heads in the room. On second thought, maybe I shouldn't have used the word heads. As always, my name is I.E. Kneverday, editor of the short story anthology Neon Druid and creator of IrishMyths.com. Thanks for coming out.